Did you know that even after almost 5 years since the Bostock decision, issues of discrimination against the LGBT+ community continue to evolve in the United States? What has changed since 2020? In 2025, the implementation of this decision still raises controversies. Do the legal protections remain as strong as before? Or have new loopholes emerged, leaving the path still unstable for LGBT+ individuals? The Bostock decision, which ensured protection against workplace discrimination based on sexual orientation or gender identity, seemed like a definitive victory. However, its impact on other areas of life for LGBT+ individuals, such as education, healthcare, and even access to public services, is still being debated. Moreover, with new proposed laws being discussed in 2025, LGBT+ rights protections are being questioned and modified, both at the federal and state levels. So, what has really changed? And is the path being paved equally for everyone, or does the struggle continue? Keep watching to understand how these issues are being discussed and the latest changes affecting the lives of thousands of LGBT+ people. The impact of the Bostock decision. The Bostock versus Clayton County decision of 2020 was a landmark for LGBT+ rights in the United States. It was an important victory because the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that workplace discrimination based on sexual orientation or gender identity is illegal, protecting LGBT+ individuals in the professional environment. This means that theoretically an employer can fire or deny a job to someone simply because of their gender identity or sexual orientation. But in 2025, it is important to question, is the impact of this decision really effective in all areas of LGBT+ people's lives? Despite the 2020 decision, the implementation and enforcement of the law still present significant challenges. Although many workers are protected from discrimination in the workplace, the reality in other fields, such as education, healthcare, and access to public services, is not as clear. Many states like Florida and Texas are creating and passing local laws that contradict or limit the protection of LGBT+ rights. For example, in 2025, in certain states, we see the demonization of trans issues in schools, with legislation that restricts the use of correct names and pronouns, or the participation of trans athletes in competitions. These laws can create hostile environments, meaning the fight for equitable protection is not over. Furthermore, there are still gray areas in interpreting the law. The Supreme Court has already stated that workplace discrimination is legal, but there have been few clear decisions on issues in other sectors, such as healthcare and housing. In 2025, there is a growing movement in many states to expand protections, but there is also political pressure to reverse some of these victories. Discrimination in unprotected areas. While the Bostock decision was crucial, many LGBT+ individuals still face discrimination in areas not covered by the decision. Discrimination in healthcare is a particularly serious issue. In some parts of the United States, especially in more conservative states, it is still possible for a trans person or a same-sex couple to be denied medical treatment because of their gender identity or sexual orientation. This is not just a matter of employment, but also access to basic healthcare rights. Furthermore, adoption by LGBT+ couples still faces legal barriers in certain states. Although the Supreme Court decision legalized same-sex marriage, some states still impose restrictions on same-sex couples who wish to adopt children. In 2025, we see that the approval for adoption by LGBT+ couples in many states depends on state laws, meaning that in some places, LGBT+ families can still be denied adoption based on religious or political beliefs. So the central question for 2025 is, does the legal system truly protect every aspect of an LGBT+ person's life? Or are there still important areas where discrimination is allowed? Proposed laws in 2025, the future of LGBT+ rights. While the impact of the 2020 Bostock decision is still being felt, in 2025, new legislative proposals are shaping the future of LGBT+ rights in the United States. In many states, we see increasing pressure to reverse some of the protections that have been achieved. But there are also progressive initiatives aimed at expanding the rights of the LGBT+ community, offering greater protections in areas such as healthcare, education, and marriage. In states like California, New York, and Illinois, legislation is being introduced to ensure full equality in all areas of life. This includes proposals to protect trans children and teens from conversion therapies, as well as measures that ensure equal access to healthcare for all LGBT+ individuals. These proposals are crucial because they seek to ensure that all citizens, regardless of their gender identity or sexual orientation, can live without fear of discrimination or violence. However, in states like Florida, Texas, and Mississippi, the situation is quite different. In 2025, these areas continue to be hotspots for legal conflicts and political disputes. Many of these states have attempted to reverse the rights that have been gained, with bills seeking to restrict access to healthcare for trans individuals. ban trans athletes from participating in sports competitions, and even limit LGBT+ education in schools. One of the proposals that has gained attention in recent years involves restricting adoption by LGBT+ couples. Although same-sex marriage was legalized by the Supreme Court, adoption in many states is still not guaranteed for same-sex couples. In 2025, there is pressure for laws prohibiting adoption by LGBT+ couples in certain states to be repealed, but there is also strong resistance from religious and conservative groups. What is needed for new laws to be passed? For these laws to be passed, they need to go through a complex legislative process. Each state has its own legislative system, and the proposed laws need to be discussed, voted on, and approved by local lawmakers. Additionally, these laws often need to be signed by the governor before they can take effect. In an ideal scenario, these proposals would progress through bipartisan agreements, but this rarely happens on LGBT+ issues, where there is often an ideological divide. In recent years, many states have seen sharp conflicts between the Democratic and Republican parties, which makes the future of LGBT+ laws even more uncertain. Public acceptance also plays an important role. While most of the American population has become more supportive of LGBT+ rights over the years, there is still a significant number of voters who oppose legal changes that expand these protections. This means that even if most lawmakers want to guarantee LGBT+ rights, political pressure and voter preferences can determine the success or failure of these initiatives. LGBT+ adoption in 2025, challenges and progress. Although same-sex marriage was legalized in 2015, adoption by LGBT+ couples continues to be a highly contested issue in many states across the United States. In 2025, adoption by same-sex couples is still not uniformly guaranteed across the country, and laws vary significantly from state to state. In progressive states like California and New York, LGBT+ couples have the right to adopt children equally to heterosexual couples without discrimination. However, in conservative states like Texas and Florida, the situation is much more complicated. In these states, many LGBT+ couples still face legal barriers and discrimination when attempting to adopt. Some states even allow adoption agencies to refuse LGBT+ couples based on religious beliefs, paving the way for discrimination in what should be a public and equal process. In 2025, legal battles continue, and many lawyers, human rights organizations, and LGBT+ groups are fighting to ensure the adoption rights of same-sex couples in all states. In response, some judicial decisions have been favorable, expanding protections for LGBT+ couples seeking to start a family, but legal insecurity is still a reality. Anti-discrimination laws, what's at stake? Another critical issue in 2025 is the laws combating discrimination in areas beyond employment and adoption, such as housing and healthcare. In 2020, with the Bostock decision, the Supreme Court ensured that individuals cannot be fired or discriminated against in the workplace based on their sexual orientation or gender identity. However, in practice, many LGBT+ individuals still face difficulties accessing proper health care or encounter discrimination in rental housing and home purchases. In response to this lack of consistent protections, LGBT+ rights groups are pushing for changes to federal laws to include national protection against discrimination in all sectors, ensuring that no one is disadvantaged due to their gender identity or sexual orientation. Equal access to healthcare is one of the biggest challenges faced by the LGBT+ community. Many transgender individuals, for example, face difficulties obtaining appropriate medical treatment and may be discriminated against in hospitals or clinics. In 2025, the fight to ensure that all LGBT+ citizens have equal access to medical care is intensifying, with organizations such as the Human Rights Campaign and Lambda Legal leading advocacy efforts for LGBT+ rights. Summary and final thoughts. As we approach 2025, it's clear that LGBT+ rights in the United States are at a crossroads of significant change and challenge. While the Bostock decision was an important step, full and equitable protection is still far from being achieved. In many states, equal access to healthcare, education, and the right to adopt are still controversial and deeply politicized issues. The advances made over the years are not a guarantee of stability for all aspects of LGBT+ life. In conservative states, ongoing laws and legal actions may still limit fundamental rights protections, such as marriage and adoption. However, there is also significant resistance and continued efforts to expand protections in progressive states, aiming to ensure equality for all people, regardless of sexual orientation or gender identity. The big question for 2025 is, will the United States be able to create a truly inclusive society where laws protect all citizens equally, or will political and social division continue to shape the future of LGBT+ policies? Final call to action, engagement, and reflection. If you've made it this far, share your thoughts in the comments. What do you think about the future of LGBT+ laws in the United States? Do you think protections are advancing or are there setbacks happening? Leave your comment below and join this important conversation. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, subscribe now for more content on the fight for LGBT+ rights and legal updates. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and share it with your friends. This really helps spread awareness and increase visibility of the legal situation of the LGBT+ community in 2025. Let's continue the fight for equality together.